Welcome. It's time for another episode of To the Moon with Voxx, the place where psychic phenomena meet science and world culture. And we are, as always, live from the Devil's Tower. My God. What in the hell?
I don't know, but something's going on. But hey, if you
Think?
think about it, this is an improvement because sometimes it takes a little bit longer than that, and that was an acceptable time frame. It was just a
Oh,
nightmare.
did you think we were talking about us?
No, I haven't been paying attention to the news. What's going on?
Oh my God. Well, how about, end times? I mean, it doesn't matter if you're Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, whatever. If you cannot see the signs of what time in history this is, a psychic can't help you. Okay? What can I say? Well, some of the challenges that we're dealing with today are the fact that the sun in Leo is at 29 degrees, meaning it's a negative degree. In astrology, it's called an anoretic degree, not anorexic. That's a different degree. I'm just kidding. Anyway, it always promises difficulties. And to make matters more challenging, we've got the blue moon, which means the second full moon in 1 month time, that will also be at 29 degrees Aquarius. So it's
Direct
also,
opposition?
oh yeah, well, that's what a full moon is. It
Always?
is always, that defines the full moon. It defines it. It also defines the new moon, which is a great question to hopefully finally clarify this. The new moon is at the exact degree of the sun when it moves into the next sign. That's called a conjunction. The sun and moon are conjoined in the same sign at the same degree, thus instigating the brand new moon of that next zodiacal month. Now, the opposite applies for the full moon when the sun is exactly the same degree as the moon, but in the opposite sign, and that creates the full moon. Whenever the new moon happens at a particular degree, at a particular time of the year, you will get a solar eclipse. That means the sun is getting eclipsed by the moon. Okay. A lunar eclipse happens when the sun is at a certain degree and obfuscates the moon. So basically today we're at 29 degrees Leo. The sun is there. Tomorrow, very early in the morning, we're going to have the full moon in the opposite sign of Aquarius, both at 29 degrees. I guarantee it is affecting not only the world news, but it is affecting your personal life. Okay. The 29th degree of any sign is where it gets oversaturated right before it goes into the next phase. And that's where all kinds of crazy things go down. In particular, the full moon's going to happen in Aquarius. So don't be surprised if there's serious communication problems, electrical problems, computer problems, everybody, car problems, and it will all be directly related to the electric output. Cords may not work, systems may fail. Try not to flip out if you can. Good luck with that. And because the actual placement of the sun is at the 29th degree in Leo, it makes for high drama. So nothing you can do about it. So, and then the new moon is going to come within 2 weeks after the full moon. Now, we were talking one time about the eclipses. A solar eclipse happens when the moon obfuscates the sun, and that's called a solar eclipse. When the sun obfuscates the moon, it's called a lunar eclipse. So whatever the sign that's getting eclipsed is from the sun. Now, other planets can also have eclipses, but it's basically based upon our perspective from Earth. We're in what we're called the Goldilocks area. The size of certain planets against the distance of the sun can trigger those eclipses, because eclipses are not technically real. They are only real in as much as the perspective allows.
Right. If I was on the moon, I wouldn't see. If I was on Mars, it wouldn't be an eclipse to me at all, right? Relative to my ability to view it.
No, however, certain planets, Venus and Mars, and Mercury can also be eclipsed, okay? Because they're closer to the sun. That's the Goldilocks area. So it's very interesting. And so one of the weird things too, about 3 days ago now, Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius, has made things even more difficult because it went retrograde at 14 degrees. And that has just thrown a monkey wrench into the whole business. So we have the full moon in Aquarius, and we just had Uranus go retrograde. Okay, so all this Uranian activity is driving people insane. Now, one of the weird effects that I noticed the day that Uranus went retrograde a few days ago, I noticed that little mishaps were happening because things were slipping. Okay, you were trying to tape something, it wouldn't stick, and things were sticking to my body. Thank God they weren't spoons and knives. So Uranus went retrograde at 14 degrees in Taurus, and Taurus makes a fixed square to Uranus. Okay, so it doubles the intensity. And now we also have the full moon intensifying that negative effect. Now, how shall I say? Uranus also tends to rule the idea of photography, and it's being squared. And something that I noticed today in the British newspaper and the Australian newspaper, because I actually check out foreign news sources because I find them to be more reliable than American news sources. However, the Afghani Taliban, right, took a really annoying propaganda photograph of a bunch of Taliban members using American outfits, military outfits, and military guns and all that, all from the United States, planting the Taliban flag in the same positions as the famous photograph from Iwo Jima.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, and this is Uranus retrograde.
Yeah.
Retrograde meaning bringing things back from the past and subverting them for propaganda, so that you can toss that meaning into the Barbie, right?
No, I would argue that's a matter of perspective. And I would argue that if you were them and you had your country invaded for 20 years and a false government propped up and, trillions of dollars wasted,
Yes.
hundreds of thousands of deaths, all for a war that you didn't start to begin with. Now that the forces leave, I would argue that's a very strong call to that Iwo Jima vibe. That raising the flag on Iwo Jima statue, it's just them doing it. They got rid of the foreign invader. They overcame.
However, it doesn't stop the fact of the perspective being tweaked in a very...
Well, it's tweaked for us too, because that literally never happened. We invented that statue.
Understand what we're talking about. We're talking about perception through photographs. So whether or not it was true is actually irrelevant.
What?
It's irrelevant.
I beg to differ. I think the symbolism is extremely powerful, and it's a big fuck you to us for invading their country for 20 years and doing nothing but harm.
That is subtext. What I'm talking about is like taking the famous photograph of the nude Marilyn Monroe and having a skeleton mimic the same body gestures.
And I feel like that would be a killer tattoo.
It is, but that's not the point. The point is that something that's been considered tried and true in tradition has been turned on its head. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I disagree.
Yeah. So it's just a perspective. That's it. But it's interesting, the timing is completely coinciding with Uranian retrograde. Now we've got 5 major planets retrograde. We're getting ready to have a Mercury retrograde on top of it. So I am telling you, all the way through Halloween, it's going to be, how shall we say, unpleasant in French. Or what? I don't know. You're not going to like the next 6 months. You're not going to like the publicity behind it. You're not going to like the politics. You're not going to like the wars. You're not going to like the propaganda. You may understand it, but you're not going to like it because it's going to affect governments around the world. I'm going to say in a more negative way. So these are signs that you can find in the Bible, in the Quran. Name a book with a bad chapter. This is what's going on. And there's a lot of people that consider me kind of a gloom and doom theory astrologer. And no, I'm not. I'm just calling it the way it is. So those are just some of the planetary aspects that are going on right now. And so 8:02 a.m. Eastern Standard Time is the actual full moon in Aquarius at 29 degrees. And if you are a Scorpio, Aquarius, Taurus, or any other fixed sign, Aquarius, the whole gamut of the fixed signs, you're going to have a bad day. And the closer you are to anywhere, let's say 20 degrees to 7 degrees of the next sign, you're not going to have a good day. That's just the way it is. So I want to pay attention to where those zodiacal signs are in your planetary houses, because that will be what's telling you what's going to be the challenge in your life under which subject. So say if you have this eclipse happening in your 7th house of marriage, relationships, you might be on the verge of a divorce. That's just the way it is. So you might want to check out your rising sign. And how shall I say this? You're going to need me like really bad for the next 6 months. So feel free to contact me. So for all the listeners out there, especially, my fans, my patrons, and all of those people, you might want to give me a call at 307-212-8239 and book an appointment. And if you write or call, just let me know that you're a fan of the show, and I'll give you a special rate because you're going to need me. Trust me on this. So getting back to that whole other little situation. So also tomorrow at 5:35 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, to make life even more fun, I'm being sarcastic, of course, as always, the sun is going to enter Virgo. Because remember, we're at the last degree of Leo. So these two major changes that are coming up within the next 24 hours is going to be really a huge challenge for everybody. Whenever a planet enters the new sign, it enters at 0 degrees. So the sun is going to be at 0 degrees Virgo, getting the double whammy of the blue moon effect of 29 degrees Aquarius full moon. So it's going to be absolutely crazy, just absolutely crazy. Also, because 29 degrees of Leo, which is fire sign, is going to very likely, I'm just going to say it, no, it's absolutely going to create more fires, more explosions, more bombs, more mass physical confrontations. Just count on it. And a quick way to save a ton of money rather than spending it on a psychic necessarily is to literally just read the headlines on the news or on any kind of major blog that does news services. You will find that if you do astrology backwards, that it's going to explain the headlines. You don't need to have a psychic working for you unless you really need to make certain kind of changes in your personal life, especially regarding contracts, deals, investments, all that stuff. Just letting you know across the board, don't do anything for the next 3 days that's super important to you, because it's really going to be a waste of time. Uranus retrograde, forget about it. But what you do want to do is try to take advantage of the timing and get certain things done by September 8th or September 9th, because very quickly after that, we're into the shadow of Mercury retrograde. So you're going to have Jupiter retrograde, Saturn retrograde, Pluto retrograde, Uranus retrograde, and Mercury retrograde.
Hey,
Oh, it's bad.
it's like the retrograde Olympics.
That's a wash, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not even counting the pandemic. That's not even counting that. So I think it's really interesting how, I always try not to be political, but there's absolutely no way to avoid certain political conversations. But Russia and China are just licking their chops over our disaster in Afghanistan. And whether or not you believe in God or you're an atheist or whatever, I really don't care. Do your own will. But find some kind of way to project some kind of positivity to that area of the world and try to keep it safe, even if it's just, a fake belief system. I'll take it. So just a very, very traumatic time for the planet. And for other people that are paying attention to this, I've done a lot of research, and the times that the entire world cried at the same time for disasters has always been when the sun was in Virgo, without fail. You can think of 9/11. You can think of the death of Mother Teresa. You can think of the death of Princess Diana. A time when every eye in the world was crying about something has always been when the sun is in Virgo. I feel free to challenge anybody to check out these, research subjects. I invite you to study astrology and timing of patterns and events on the planet, and you'll come to the same conclusion. And it most likely will be even more challenging because we have Neptune also retrograde. So yeah, that's 6 planets, retrograde in the sign of Pisces, which is in opposition of the sun in Virgo. So I'm going to say all the way through till October 30th, we can expect just a lot of annoyances, a lot of major changes. Now, here's the deal. Again, whether or not you believe in God is irrelevant, but I do believe that there's a purpose for all of the things that we're going through. And I do believe that at some point we will have to learn the lessons that led us to this point. So I'm not hopeless. I'm trying to be instructive, trying to be helpful. So I'm trying to give you directions that will help you through this nightmare existence so you can get to the other side. So that's just kind of where I'm coming from today. So it may sound really debilitating, very unpleasant, very negative. Too bad. I didn't decide how the planets are spinning. So there. So what do you have to say about all this weirdness?
I don't know. I mean, I guess you can kind of feel it in the background. I didn't realize it was that crazy, though, and chaotic.
Yeah. Have you been looking at the news, hearing it, reading it?
No, not over the past week.
That would explain everything right there.
Yeah.
I just had a client the other night, and I said, oh, and your cards are showing that you should not turn on the news whatsoever for the next month. She goes, are you kidding? I never watch the news. I'm like, well, for sure don't start now. Oh, man. So last week we were talking about all kinds of weird, natural conspiracies like Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, and all that. And we got a lot of really good feedback from that. And we're probably going to do some similar shows on that. So if you guys want to check it out, and always write to us, You can write to us at To The Moon with Voxx. It's voxx@gmail.com. Or you can call us at 307-212-8239. And you can also reach us by other methods like voxx.org/contact. And check out the Patreons and all that, because I'm going to be doing a lot of lectures, a lot of classes, a lot of cool online events that'll keep you up to date with the strange, bizarre world of astrology, psychic phenomena, and bizarre conspiracies. Hey, do you know who Carlton Tucker is?
Tucker Carlton, yeah.
See, I don't even know his name.
Yeah, I know who he is.
He's trying to horn in on this crazy stuff too. He's pretending to be the next George Noory.
Oh God, he's hysterical.
Yeah, checking out the UFOs. I'm like, dude, really? Crop circles.
He's just a character, man. He's like a construct of the things that trigger society and mostly conservative gut reactions and knee-jerk reactions to hyper-polarizing and skewed news headlines. But he is hysterical.
He is funny, but I will say a lot of times people will talk about this subject matter to gain listenership or viewership.
Of course.
Anytime you'd have a psychic on a TV or radio show, the ratings would go through the roof. And so finally people started realizing, well, I want to take advantage of this demographic and just start posting ridiculous stories with nothing more than questions, which is interesting. But I do like to kind of get behind the scenes and unveil things with the tarot, numerology, the Kabbalah, and all that kind of stuff, and astrology, So what are some ideas that you might want to pass by the old tarot?
I didn't really come prepared with anything specific today. Haven't been staying abreast of the news cycle, so I don't know if things are ultra crazy out there or not.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I don't really have any questions for the tarot tonight, but I mean I'd be open to hearing some things from the tarot if you're gonna draw some cards.
Yeah, I use the Aleister Crowley Thoth deck, one of our distant ancestors, and check out a couple things. A few of my students and patrons wrote to me recently and said, Voxx, what's going to happen if in Afghanistan? Or what the hell is going to happen in Afghanistan? So with that in mind, we can get political because that really is a really meaningful question that people have. But if I were to say, how is this going to pan out ultimately for the United States, which kind of dropped the ball big time on that whole deal. Well, there will be, what?
I disagree completely. I could not agree more with us pulling out of that country. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of resources. It killed thousands of our own people, and it accomplished nothing. Nobody will occupy Afghanistan. Nobody's been able to over recorded history. Ever. No. And you can't establish a democracy in an ideological state. They're always going to go back to Islam. It's going to become a theocracy. I guarantee it. Because all you've done is given the people the ability through democracy, and in our case through feigned democracy, that they now have the freedom to reelect what they want to go to begin with, which is Islam and Sharia. There's no way around it. The theater curtain has been pulled, and the show is fucking over. We had no business being there. We accomplished nothing but killing our own people and killing their people. Nothing of value was gained.
Now, let's see what the tarot has to say. You got the Aeon card. Remember, the question is something that nobody knows the answer to, except I'm asking the tarot. The Aeon card is about a repeat performance, which means they're going to have to, or think they have to, go back and start implementing things that they screwed up the first time, as if we didn't learn last time. And that will happen by September 23rd. And it looks like the people that are running the military forces in the United States are going to be trying to go back, at the very least, to get the people out. So this is long from over, okay? So that's what America is going to be dealing with. Now, let's find out what the Afghani people in that area are going to be doing. Like, say, for the next 6 months. Oh, boy, you got the Tower. Yay! Eight of Swords, terrible. Nine of Wands. I mean, forget the idea of anything positive happening there. And it will be another war. It is far from over.
There will always be another war out there because other nations keep trying to impose their will on the country. And the bottom line is they went back to exactly where they were before we invaded them, which is what they were always going to do. It was a complete farce, in my opinion. That fucking Al-Qaeda drives planes into the World Trade Center. Somehow we invade Iraq and then Afghanistan. Fuck off. The whole thing is such a charade. So many people died over this bullshit political theater.
Yeah, and it started, and first off, not for anything, we can say whatever we want. The idea is that they never really completely knew who was really behind the World Trade Center situation, no matter what. Now, this is an absolute fact. I collected every piece of information for like years on 9/11. The first thing that we did when we declared war, we went to Iraq. Do you know what the first place we went to was? It's going to blow your mind.
No.
Anybody who read and studied will understand that the first place they went to was the Museum of Rare Artifacts. Destroyed the museums, took what they wanted, and then they bailed off, and for God knows whatever reason they decided to attack Afghanistan, where they thought the foundations were, or Al-Qaeda, which basically translates in Arabic to the base. Okay, so that's the first place they went.
Wait, who's they in this context?
What?
Who is they in this context?
They is us.
Okay, but we have
the United States government.
We have a ton of footage of the people looting that museum. Yeah. And us standing by and doing nothing because for some reason we only had the authority to rip out their political institution after killing Saddam. Well, we did. This I happen to know about because I worked in that particular sector the entire time this was happening. And I will say this.
The people that were looting it were backed by Americans. That's a fact.
I think we're dissembling here because you could argue that all the people were backed by Americans by virtue of American intervention, our hypothetical salvation. So that's true in a very non-literary sense, I guess, or non-literal sense. But absolutely not. You could see that the people were, that's the first place they did, just like the people here do whenever there's some type of crazy social crisis happening on the ground. Looting and fires and theft and vandalism always emerges. It emerges here. This is human behavior. It's because we're descended from fucking chimps, all of us. And then there in Iraq specifically, the people looted those museums while our soldiers just stood around because they had orders to stand around and not stop them because they didn't want to create some kind of altercation.
Well, a lot of that stuff wound up in American hands. Let's put it to you that way.
I'm surprised it all didn't end up in fucking Britain. We're talking about thieves of culture. Good God.
Oh, yeah.
But, okay, that's neither here nor there. But what we did in Iraq was a farce as well, and we killed many, many more people in Iraq.
Absolutely. And it's a place where my father used to work. I grew up in Saudi Arabia. You know, I learned how to speak Farsi. I mean, I grew up there. I mean, I wasn't a Muslim, but I had great affection for the places and the situation, and all of that was completely avoidable and should have never been done in the first place. And you cannot take that out of people.
Oh.
You can't take it out. They will always revert. So if China thinks you're going to pull any funny stuff over,
good luck.
Yeah, exactly. Good luck with that. That's not going to happen.
No, you're not going to take these people over. You're not going to. They have something that we don't have. They have conviction. We don't have political conviction.
No, we don't.
Right. And as far as I can tell, we just have causes to keep perpetual war going and keep the war machine going. And I'm not anti-military in any sense, but anybody would be a fool to not see that that's exactly what we were trying to do, was create a perpetual war, A, against B, an idea. And you can't kill a fucking idea. If anything, you can't. It's the most insidious thing in the world, or it can be. And that's not even the word I'm looking for. But the deepest thing of a human being is his ideology and his conviction. And you killing him will just spur the people who thought like him to fight even harder. So,
I actually, you know, because I'm not a gambling type of person, but I would be really, really, really rich right now if I had. I posted, to my knowledge, the only correct tarot and astrological prediction on Reddit that completely nailed accurately what was going to happen with the election. And I proved it with photographs and charts and name everything. And it's unfolding right now. And we're in the middle of a huge political disaster, even though we started this show just to have fun. But it's really hard to have fun when you see the devastation all around you, and you think you might be able to get people to open their minds and see things in a different way. And that's basically what I feel like we're trying to do right now.
That is part of the fun. Yeah, absolutely. You know, if people are willing to accept alternate explanations or just alternate perspectives, that's all. You don't have to accept it, but just listen to it.
Yeah, because we're not here to convert anybody.
No.
But my clients contacted me immediately. I was in the middle of doing the research for the Haiti earthquake, which, by the way, repeated itself 10 years almost to the freaking day. And on the website at voxx.org, I'm going to have a special page for To the Moon, and you guys can check out links to research sites or charts or any of the stuff that we discuss on the show to elucidate some of the crazier things we're talking about. So while I was doing the earthquake idea, all of a sudden the whole Afghani thing blew up in our face. Although, you know, we were warned about this repeatedly. So
I'm going to say it, and I can cut this if I need to. Some of us knew this was going to happen the entire time, and I would argue that we are not the minority here. There is anybody who pays attention to history is going to see this pattern unfold and repeat again and again and again. And you're not going to be able to subvert their tribal culture and their tribal sympathies. You just simply won't be able to do it. The whole hearts and minds thing's complete fucking farce. We won over nobody with anything but money. In no sense did any Afghan there think that we were on the side of right, invading their country completely fucking arbitrarily. Oh, actually, I doubt it was arbitrary. There must be some kind of wealth motive or something there. Nation building, you know. But there's no Afghan that believes that we should have invaded them. None. They'll just wait us out. Do you know why? Their average cost of living is $1.90 a day. Here we are spending $1 billion a day. And that is true. And so they'll just wait us out. How much is a fucking liter of water and a dead goat? You can live forever on that shit. And here we are just throwing men and resources, just murdering them. You know, a lot of times we would catch the bad guy. You know, it's worth mentioning that when it comes to Afghanistan, the CIA overthrew the Taliban in like 9 days. And they did this with a small, focused like group of CIA agents on the ground. They overthrew them from the government in 9 days. This is true and can be back. Just go look it up. And then what happens? Then we spend 20 years there trying to capture hearts and minds and saying we built schools. Motherfucker, you built schools. Why don't you build schools in Detroit? Why don't we invade Detroit and build some infrastructure there and help our own people? That's a war zone.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah, why would that ever happen? And so we have all this bullshit where we have people go, well, we built schools. I would hear Marines say that. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? What, that women can go to? You virtue signaling. So now that women can go to school, as soon as you leave, they're gonna beat those women back into submission. You have changed nothing for a cause that didn't exist, for a nation that doesn't give a fuck about you. And that's true.
It's absolutely true. And look at our people here in the United States.
Yeah.
The people in Detroit, by the way, still 3 or 4 years later, still have no potable drinking water. Did you know?
What the fuck? Those are our people. Those are our literal citizens. You say what you want about the violence, but a lot of this is begat by the way that society has, at least as far as I can tell, marginalized the residents of these once important industrial nexuses of the nation. And now all you have to do is, there's a documentary on 7 Mile, right? On the gang violence, the drug trade, and just a general area. And I guess at one point Detroit was the most prosperous city in the United States. And then once people started, right, you've got the GM Towers just overlooking this devastated city. And you know what? They have neon lights on the roofs of their fucking buildings. It's like, how much more dystopian can you possibly get? And right, and separated from the truth of what's really on the ground. These are real people. They're our citizens. So fuck you if you built a school in Afghanistan, you stupid motherfucker. You got a literacy rate of 4% in some parts of Detroit. Build a school there. Help our people out of the mud that we put them in.
They've been talking about importing some of these people into the country. Really?
I'm not opposed to that. Not necessarily. But, there's it's a slippery slope here. I understand that the slippery slope is frequently a fallacy. But I'm all for letting people in as long as they assimilate. But don't bring people in and let them form their own. What is it? Is there secular and what's the other one? Secular and
can't remember.
I can't remember, but I think secular is like when something is unto itself, right? So like a secular nation wouldn't be run by religion as much as it would for its own. It's a secular state, right? Not I forget what the other word is, but that's what I would be against, is importing Afghans here where they build their own community. Don't assimilate and then become like self-imposed pariahs within our social structure. I'm not for that.
No, but that is what would happen.
That's what happened in Sweden. That's what happened in Germany. That's what's completely happened in France.
Oh, absolutely. And what we're talking about pulling the 10 of swords. What we're saying is really devastating, very slanderous, but it's also very true.
I don't believe it's slanderous. I would argue that. I think it's very true.
People would think so, but
they think whatever the fuck they want. That's one of the beauties of living here, is you feel free to think whatever the hell you want. But the fact is, people should come here. They should have the opportunity to have everything that America provides. We should be set up to help them do that. But in no way does that mean go form your own clique and exclude America from you once you're taking advantage of our resources.
The problem is that we really honestly need to be dealing with our own country first.
Agreed. No argument there, but I'm just saying I'm not necessarily opposed to letting people in.
I'm not opposed at all. But I just think, it's just not helpful. And it also, what it does to the disenfranchised people that are already here, creates instant hatred against the people that come in and usurp what they thought they were supposed to get. So it's just not happening. We were called the melting pot for so many years, and it's turning out to be that some of these things don't melt. It makes a weird tasting soup, Yeah. But it's very interesting. Now, something else also that happened, there was news that reported that bin Laden had the opportunity to take out Joe Biden, meaning like get rid of him.
If you wait long enough, the bumbling fucking oaf will choke on his own tongue.
Bin Laden told them not to take matters into their own hands, told them do not hurt Joe Biden, because let him continue, because one day he'll be in a position to completely destroy our country. That came from bin Laden, who, by the way, was born under the sign of Cancer, if that matters.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, the world's only skinny Cancer. Way to go, bin Laden.
And apparently, bin Laden was born on the same day as George Bush. Okay, the second, George Walker Bush, whatever. And Saddam Hussein was born on the same exact day as George Herbert Walker Bush. How
Is
weird.
that true?
That's absolutely true. I did the chart.
That's so freaking crazy.
How
What?
weird is that?
So each president's
Weird.
cliched nemesis was born on the same birthday?
Yeah,
I know somebody who has my birthday, and I'd consider him my nemesis too. There might be something to that.
there might be. Very, very interesting. Very interesting. So as far as what's the ultimate reality in the United States involvement in Afghanistan, the Princess of Swords are going to just have to cut their losses and get the hell out and
Yep.
leave those people alone.
Agreed.
The Princess of Swords is earth of air energy, and it indicates logic or the need for logic, which there is none right now. There is none, zero. And there's a lot of really weird conspiracies. I don't know if we should talk about it, but what the hell? The idea was that they deliberately voted Biden in and they put Kamala Harris as the vice president because they knew for a fact Biden wouldn't make it all the way through his presidency, and they could then install a Marxist government.
Yeah, but that has completely backfired, and the law of unintended consequences. Her approval ratings are so abysmal. I believe they're in the single digits. I was listening to Part of the Problem, and they were talking about this, and I want to say the only way that if Trump re-ran and won again would be if he runs against her next term. I will laugh so hard that all the left's machinations and plots and twists and turns and intrigue and all they've done in this, I will laugh so hard if they get Trump reelected.
Well, it's not outside the realm of possibility.
Absolutely not. It's the only way it could happen. They've engineered the perfect scenario. You got this doddering fool. I don't know if you've listened to his town hall speech, but
I couldn't bear it.
Oh my God, Don Lemon is like, I forget what Don Lemon says. Oh God, I can't remember, but I don't need to remember because Joe Biden's like, well, there's an astronaut. Tell your kids about aliens. And you're like, what? You're a moron. And so I wasn't kidding. I'm convinced this guy's going to choke on his own tongue in a fit of stupidity. And that's going to put her in office. And
Yeah.
I believe that Trump can actually win against this chick. I totally believe it.
He absolutely can.
Oh my God, then we're going to get him again. Oh God.
The only problem that I had with Trump was his handling and his fumbling over the COVID-19 scenario. That is really my greatest problem with him.
I don't know. I would argue that the world's fastest developed vaccine was handled over his watch, but I have a number of problems with him. You only have one?
Well, that's my main one.
Because this man, there's some kind of behavior on his part where everything he promised, as far as I could tell, was a lie. Everything. There's no wall. Well, show me the wall. Not that I think we needed one. I just knew it would never happen. It was a political boondoggle to convince like the ultra far right people to support him, and it worked like a charm. You guys got played like a fiddle, just like the left is getting played like a fiddle with Biden's stuttering meanderings. It's like, you guys believe a word this clown says? And then to think that Biden is the reason that we got out of Afghanistan comically proves bin Laden right.
This entire conversation is nothing but heresy.
It's all true. When heresy is the word of God, there's a bit of irony there.
There is. Heresy doesn't mean it's not true.
Right.
Heresy just means the person that you're offending has more power than you.
Oh, that was well said. Yeah, it's so crazy. If you're on either side, to the listeners, if you believe either side of our American political system, if you're a leftist, please, by all means, go fuck yourself. And if you believe a single word that the right says, oh, I swear to God, go jump off a fucking cliff because you're completely deluded. Both these parties are fucking lying to you. They can't help it. Just every word. I would argue this. Every single word that either of them says is a fucking lie. And that's where you are. Nothing good came of Afghanistan. And then for them to say that pulling out was a bad idea, Jesus Christ, what the fuck do you people want? Going in was a bad idea. Now pulling out was a bad idea. Well, now that we're here, you're never going to be able to establish democracy in an Islamic state, period, because the Islamic state use that democracy to vote back Sharia.
We can't even get our own people out.
We don't. What can I say? I would argue we don't have people there. We never did.
No. There are several thousand people, and they're stuck there. And now Biden told them, don't even try to go to the airport because now there's reports that people are being murdered on the way to the airport.
Well, as far as I can tell, the Taliban, as far as I can tell, they said they would allow people to peacefully leave.
Well, You know, I give them credit for about 3 days, and they're not doing it now.
Yeah,
And
that would
you
be
know,
follow
come on,
precedent.
seriously, I should look up the translation of Taliban. Well, I will say, interestingly enough, Tali comes from an
To
ancient
destroy,
goddess of
right?
destruction. And Tali also is a prefix of the word like tailor or talure, which is the talons of the eagle. And the eagle does what? Rip and shred, rip and shred. And I'm not
Yeah,
talking about craft American singles either. So
yeah.
there.
If that's for our freedoms.
Oh, God, there's absolutely nothing funny about any of this
No,
whatsoever.
it's funny in a very dark way.
Welcome to the new dark ages.
Yeah.
You know, and let's look at it from an opposite side. um, Not to show sympathy, but just to say that we're looking on the dark side of the moon. Basically, what some of these people want to do is withdraw back into a simpler time of like Stone Age, medieval situation or time frame. And after looking at the blessing and benefit of so-called modernity, I'm starting to think, what about that? Because nothing that we've been creating for the last 30 years is going in a very positive direction. I could understand why people want to like toss themselves back into the Stone Age, because life was simpler, you know? There is no real progress except for the billionaires who are making boats and yachts that are worth $2.5 billion. A freaking boat. A
Yeah.
boat. Come on.
Paragons of excess. And it's not that
Oh,
I have a problem with the rich or the wealthy, but it seems so disproportionate that a man can just launch himself into space, and meanwhile, like,
that we have to take him back once he's done.
yeah, but again, and I hate to just keep harping on it, but meanwhile, while this man is able to do that, you have tens of thousands of people in inner city areas who, I'm not this huge sympathetic character. I'm sure people have discovered this by now. I don't I don't tend to show sympathy because I typically it's a bit of Schadenfreude. You did it to yourself 99% of the time. That said, these people didn't do it to themselves; they were born into it, and so uh, launches himself up into the stratosphere, buoyed by hundreds of billions of dollars of just capitalist wrecking ball strategies to basically, provide 66% of the world's internet traffic through AWS, be the largest retail that's ever existed in the history of mankind. This guy's like the Mansa Musa of the Western civilization. Or what's his name? Mansa Musa? Who's that rich dude? Whatever. He has more money than can be calculated, and meanwhile you have people who can't read. And it's like, well, what would you do with your money? I'd do a fuckload different than launch myself into space for no goddamn reason. Look what Andrew Carnegie did with his money.
We should just let them all fly to Mars and lock them out.
Fuck that. We just need for all the government intervention, we should regulate this type of shit. And, I will say, these famous billionaires. Oh, by the way, in the previous episode, the word I was looking for was robber baron. And
Oh, yeah.
remember, and I kept, and we were like, tycoon. I'm like, yeah, but it was robber baron. But these robber barons had incalculable wealth relative to the time that they were in. And we're talking the Rockefellers and the Carnegies and the Morgans and the Rothschilds, and then the people who we don't even know about. And even Carnegie at the end, once he'd accomplished all of his goals, what did he do? Complete philanthropy. We still have his theaters of the performing arts all over the nation. We have
Right.
still, big proponent of academic progress for the youth. He really was. He still has grants out that self-fund themselves and give people scholarships because he had more money than God. He did what he came here to do, and then he spent the rest of his life being a philanthropist. Bill Gates is doing that as well. I don't know who the fuck else is doing it. But then, you see Richard Branson's dumbass fucking launch himself into space, and then Bezos like, oh, I could do that. And then he does it like 2 days later, and you're like, what the fuck? Nobody can read in Detroit.
Yeah.
There needs to be a Bezos center for reading for kids who don't read good.
Good luck with that. Or the Lex Luthor School for Reading, because that's who he looks like.
Yeah. Well, that's what he's acting like, too. But, who knows? He might be a great guy. No fucking know him. But I do know that the stratosphere is the least of our problems right now, guys. You can do a lot of good.
I'm going to start doing some little bonus tracks on certain biographies of really influential people from the past, present, and future, maybe. I could predict a few people who might be born. We don't know. But those can be special episodes that we can also give out to our patrons, which will really help.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good idea. It's not like I have this hatred for wealthy people at all. If they've earned it, they've earned it. But I think you can heal the world, and you heal yourself by healing the world. You can do a lot of good for yourself by doing good for others too. I'm not necessarily an altruist either, but we need that. We need that type of incalculable wealth deposited back into the country.
It's not even altruism. It's basically one person has all the toys in the sandbox and has nobody to play with, so just keeps acquiring all the other toys, so absolutely nobody to play with. Nobody wants to play with them. And there's no playing field. There's no way to actually continue to grow or evolve as a person unless you give away some of what you have and create a positive reality for other people without you don't have to drain your entire bank account.
Yeah, this is the short and deep and dark appeal of a Marxist type philosophy, though. They redistribute his wealth against his will. It's a slippery one, Voxx. I'm not for that either.
You understand is that none of these systems works.
Yeah, I understand.
Completely or for very long. Everything has a seed of destruction within itself. But there are scales in the balance. The balance doesn't have one side. It's got two sides.
Yeah.
And only when we can learn how to balance these things properly can everybody benefit. But I got to tell you straight up, on a psychic, spiritual level, I really do not see any freaking reason why any single individual needs more than $10 million. Let's say max $1 billion.
I agree. But then what's the incentive for him to ever generate more wealth than that? Then at that point, he's just say, fuck it. Right?
Yeah, but make it possible. Make it possible for other people to achieve that same status and put the rest of it in some kind of a free parking on a Monopoly game.
Yeah. But you're being hopeful here. I like the sentiment.
Of course.
But if I was that person,
it's not going to happen.
No, it'll never happen because it would never work. This is counting on other people to do the right thing. And time has shown since time immemorial that people will do the wrong thing. It's like we're programmed to do the wrong thing a lot of the time. What? So $10 million, and he's like, okay, I'm going to quit running this company and let Joe Blow from Hendersonville Road. Now maybe he can get his chance. Now Joe Blow's gonna be like, all I like is horses, and all he's gonna do is invest in horses. And all of a sudden, he didn't make the same 10 million. And the engine that drove that economic truth has completely collapsed due to what? This man voluntarily seceding the throne to the public? Fuck that. It'll never happen.
I'm just saying, if it could, and if it would be interesting experiment. But it's not going to happen.
We should just do it with lab rats.
This is what fuels a revolution every 250 years. Somewhere.
Yeah.
People get sick and tired of it, and they'll bring the whole damn thing down and start all over and reinvent the wheel and rediscover fire, because that's just kind of what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, like some of these billionaires are trying to live for 1,000 years. Really?
Yeah, the Methuselah Project. That's funded by the two guys from Google, and they've supposedly made great strides towards it. But that's kept very, very heavily under wraps as well. There might be something to that, to slowing down cellular aging. There might be some kind of interesting premise there, to extend life. I wouldn't. Yeah.
It's an interesting premise, but it ain't going to happen.
No, I mean, look at Elizabeth Bathory. Her name was Elizabeth Bathory, right?
Yes, correct.
She tried that for she had her own way, and didn't work.
Yeah, because it was incorrect. She was just feeding off blood off of people instead of the chemicals that were created by the adrenal glands and the hormonal systems in the body.
Even that, who's to say you could ingest it through your stomach? Yeah. Who's to say?
There's so many other details. I'm not going to give them out to any crazy people. So forget it. It's like, you know what? This brings me to another idea, which was I had a couple of people, or actually I lied, many people that wrote me letters that saying, hey, Voxx, can you give me the lottery numbers and I'll split it with you. Like, are you a moron or what? Because first off, if I had that ability, I wouldn't even be talking to you. I would be somewhere, Shangri-La, for starters.
Shangri-La of your own making.
In a ski lodge on top of the Himalayas somewhere, and I wouldn't know you, so you couldn't bother me. So no, I'm not going to do that. But I'll share it with you. People trying to get information like that. I mean, first off, it tells me that you're a crook and you're a thief and you're trying to manipulate somebody. I was like, go away, little person. Give me a break. But I will say, I'm hoping to run for president at some point. At least maybe within the next 4 to 8 years.
What's your platform?
I'm serious about this, by the way. I figure I could not possibly ruin anything worse than has already been done. I just can't. I can't imagine it. So I'm going to run for president, and I'll sort it out. I'll
Okay.
have really amazing people helping me out with the particulars. Why not? Why
Well,
not? Kanye West? What?
dude, in this weird world that we're in, I wouldn't be surprised if somehow he said some whack metaphysical shit that resonated with like enough people to win. I would laugh so hard. Watching the fall of the Western world, at the hands of American entropy is something to behold.
My only thing, the thing is, when I have mentioned this to different clients and students, every single one of them has said, "Yeah, I'll vote for you." And the number of people that said that they would vote for me is many more thousands of people than would have voted for Kanye. I'm not
Oh
kidding.
God.
No, seriously, I'm not even kidding. I'm not even kidding. He got something like 2,000 people, and those are 2,000 votes that might have been spent on a better candidate, whomever that would have been. We don't know, because at this particular moment, they both seem like they don't know what they're doing. So
Nobody
who
seems like
knows
they know
what
what
will
they're
come
doing.
up to the plate? But I certainly dislike our vice president, who has shown absolutely zero compassion nor concern for anyone or anything, even the person that she is working with. So I have no respect for that person.
Yeah, I don't really care for her either, but I don't know anything about her. She's hasn't done anything to make her character known. Like I don't know anything about her other than she used to prosecute people for weed in San Francisco, which is a bullshit maneuver. And then we because what? You don't believe that. You don't believe that as a female person of color in this day and age. Really, you're going to tell me that you're anti-weed and they deserve jail time? Fuck you. You're pandering to whatever is feeding you. Whatever machine is generating her revenue, and that's a person to me with no conviction at all and no sensible ideology in this world other than do what's right for myself at all costs.
Well, what I think I'll do is I'll do her chart and Biden's chart next week
Yeah,
and check that out. If we're still in the mood, I might still offer those up to the patrons.
she might be
instead.
cool, who knows, but that's the problem is we don't know anything about her, right? Other than she, again, the old doddering oaf is going to have a stroke trying to walk up a staircase, and then she's going to end up having the reins of power to what I once thought was the most powerful nation in the world. But what I'm now starting to see has been nothing but a grand charade against the Constitution that supports the very life of this state to this day. All it is theater meant to erode everything that's in that document and consolidate power.
Which makes me think of the word drama, which then leads me to the idea of the H.P. Lovecraft Memorial Opera that I should be writing. Because we didn't get to do a show about H.P. Lovecraft, so I think that could be one of the next things that we do for another bonus episode is the life and times of H.P. Why not? And it was his birthday, actually yesterday, August 20th. So hats off to you, H.P. Lovecraft.
Hats off, HP.
By the way, so many of the weird things that he said have been proven to be true. It's just bizarre. He's right up there with Einstein, And we should do a couple of shows or bonus shows as well regarding Einstein and some of the theories that he posited that we've actually discussed and been proven to be true, all within the space of 4 weeks. They could have proven these things like 20 years ago, but they didn't. And when we said certain things, turned out to be actually very, very true. When we were talking about the whole idea about the discovery of black holes based on the absence of light and all that stuff. So it's really interesting. We have all kinds of cool stuff to talk about.
Well, Voxx, the crows are calling.
Oh, when will the Ravens call? That's what I want to know. I'll figure that out later. That's it for now. Thanks for listening to another episode of To the Moon with Voxx. I'd like to thank my patrons at Voxx Magic. I want you guys to follow us on social media by visiting voxx.org/contact, and that's voxx.org. If you have questions or comments or want to be on the show, give us a call at 307-212-8239. You can also write to us at To the Moon with Voxx, that's voxx@gmail.com. Until next week, you guys, have a mystical, magical day.